The madness of March is on full display in the NHL. The points seem to matter more, new heroes are emerging, and the underdogs are ready to shock the world. Who can keep pace in the playoff race, and which teams are facing an early offseason? And while the real tournament tips off this week, we take a look at what a March Madness-style bracket could look like in the NHL. Welcome back to the BarDown Podcast, presented by none other than Crown Royal. We got the great sign up there, the jersey. Might get copyrighted because of this.
Instant copyright strike.
Instant copyright strike.
Come on!
We got someone excited for March Madness here as we record this. This is the first day of the NCAA tournament on March 20th here.
You know what, fellas? Like, today just represents a turn of the season. It really does. We got March Madness coming up. We got the Masters coming up. We got NHL playoffs coming up. We got NBA playoffs coming up. We got the NFL draft coming up. Like, come on. And then we're into good weather. Like, this is it. This is March.
I was just fired up. Do you feel the same?
No, I actually had a very controversial take in the office maybe a couple weeks ago, and Jesse got really upset at me because I said March Madness is overrated. And what I mean by that, it's a great tournament. I just think that the fact that, like, no one pays attention, at least around here, for the most part, because there are fans of college basketball, but it feels like the vast majority, not a lot of people watch college basketball all season, and then the first 3 days of the tournament, it's like,
just have some fun, man.
But I will say,
So
what
much
I do
fun.
love about the tournament is it does represent, I think, kind of like, you know, spring's here. Every other
Exactly,
sports
bro.
league is about to get crazy. Like, I'm so excited for the NHL playoffs this year. The NFL draft's coming up.
Days are
And
longer.
Most importantly, yeah, it's light still at 7 o'clock outside, which is the best part about this whole time of the year. So
Yes.
I'm excited for, hopefully there's some good games today. I always like to see some upsets as well.
We are
but yeah.
firing them up on the big TV outside after.
You probably say the same thing about the Masters too, is that people just tune in for that tournament.
I like the
and never
Masters.
forget.
I like the U.S. Open. Yeah.
You watch the majors though. You're
yeah,
not
I
watching
watch the
golf
majors.
on a random
Yeah.
Sunday in February.
My
or
buddies
April.
are, so I kind of stay in the loop from
Okay.
that because they're always talking about it. But yeah, no, I only watch the majors.
Well, what we're well versed in is NHL hockey, and that's what we're here to talk about today. Not the March Madness, not the Masters, not anything else.
We get to combine both of them together.
We do. I'm not participating in this. I'm just steering this conversation here. So you guys are going to take it away as far as building out the March Madness style bracket and what it would look like in the NHL. So we're talking 1-16 format here if the NHL maybe were to adapt this, and your predictions for who would win this March Madness tournament for the Stanley Cup. I don't know where we want to start. I guess first round here of matchups. We can put them on screen now as you can see what the playoff format would look like if the NHL did decide to do this. It's definitely interesting. You've got some crossover matchups between the Western and Eastern Conference, which is always fun. And I know fresh matchups are something a lot of fans want to see rather than these same divisional ones. So interesting to say the least. Who wants to kind of kick this off?
One thing I want to mention too is that these standings are as of end of day Tuesday.
After
which would have
Tuesday
been-
night's game.
Which would have been the 18th, because obviously with editing and stuff, we had to just take a strict deadline. So by the time you watch this, the standings may have changed a bit, but this is as of Tuesday.
All right, I'll jump right into my first round. Kicking it off, Washington versus St. Louis, 1 versus 16. In real March Madness, a 16 seed has only ever won twice, I believe. I'm going to keep that trend and say that I'm moving on with the 1 seed, the Washington Capitals. Winnipeg versus Vancouver.
How many games?
I gotta say how many games they win
Yeah.
a series for every single one. I didn't do that.
Yeah, for sure. I
Okay,
think so.
Washington wins in 6 games. Binnington gets hot, steals a couple, but Ovechkin ultimately scores a ton of goals. Winnipeg versus Vancouver. Sweating a little bit over this one. They just smacked you guys 5-1 the other night. This would actually be a really good series. We might see this series, very well could, in the first round
I
in
mean,
the
them
West.
in Calgary or St. Louis probably.
I feel like it's becoming a popular take within NHL fans to be like, Winnipeg are frauds. They're not going to win in the playoffs this year. I honestly think that's incredibly harsh. They have been so good all year long. They're
Thank
so
you.
deep. And their top performers are also playing out of their mind. Kyle Connor, Mark Scheifele, Connor Hellebuck. I think Vancouver can kind of be a sleeping giant in the playoffs, but I'm going to say Winnipeg wins this one again in 6 games. 3 versus 14, Dallas versus Ottawa. Now, just 2 weeks ago when the Mikko Rantanen trade went down, I sat at this very desk and I did say that Dallas should be looked at as the new Stanley Cup favorite. I think that was a little bit prisoner of the moment of me to say. I'm super high on Dallas going forward. I think their future is incredibly bright. For whatever reason, these first couple games, they just still feel a little bit off. Injuries haven't been that kind to them. And there's something about these Ottawa Senators where I just would not want to play them in the playoffs. I think they have every single ingredient of a team that can go on a run. Great goaltending, a nice blend of young talent, veterans deep in the lineup that are performing this year, and something that has just been a steady in teams that go to the Cup final the past couple of years is a Tkachuk brother. And I think we're all super excited to watch Brady Tkachuk in the playoffs. So I'm actually going to pick my first upset, and I would pick the Senators moving on against the Stars. I know it's crazy, but it's March. You got to have some upsets in here. And Carolina versus New Jersey, again, something that could very well happen in the first round. I feel horrible for New Jersey. The injuries that they've had the last couple of weeks have been terrible for a team that really felt like they can compete for the Cup. I have the Hurricanes moving on in 6 games.
All right, so you've got your first 4 matchups there. We'll go to Jesse to give the same 4 matchups and his predictions now.
And keep in mind, this is at this moment in time. If it started this moment in time, given everything that's been going on in the league lately. Capitals versus Blues. Guys, I don't know what it is, but the Blues kind of worrying me lately. As a Jets fan too, knowing that we could play them in the first round, they've been winning a lot of games, and they've had their young guys have been playing really well. Like Holloway's been amazing, Kyrie's been amazing. This team worries me a little. I'm gonna go Caps in 7, but I think that would be a really good series, better than people think. Jets Canucks. I thought that game the other week. No, not a fluke, but I just think that the Jets are better than what they showed that night. I'm gonna go Jets in 6. I think Vancouver's a bit of a pesky team. Stars Senators. The Stars really have not been impressive lately. Like, I don't think they've been that great since the trade deadline, since they got Rantanen. They got smoked in that game. I mean, even though they lost in overtime, I thought they got smoked in that game against Colorado. And the Senators have been great, but I'm going to take playoff experience into account here. I'm going to go with the Stars in 7, but I think that'd be a really good series. I don't mind you taking the Senators there at all. And then Hurricanes, Devils. The Hurricanes have been the hottest team in the league lately, and the Devils are just, I feel like everything's kind of going in the wrong direction for them right now. I got Hurricanes in 5.
Okay.
So we only have one kind of series that you're split on there, Dallas and Ottawa, which, again, would be a fun series for sure. A lot of stars, a lot of young talent in that one. Hopefully we get to see Ottawa in the playoffs this year. I think when we talk about wildcard teams a little later, I think they're going to be a popular pick for the question I'm asking. Let's move on here to Vegas against Minnesota, a matchup we could see depending on how the wildcard standings kind of shake out.
Yeah, I feel like Minnesota the last couple months, or maybe not dating back that far, but they've cooled off a little bit. I feel like people are still kind of disregarding them when talking about some of the better teams in the West. But going up against Vegas, it's just a tough first-round matchup. I got Vegas moving on here in 5 games. Colorado versus LA. LA Kings, no matter what format we decide, they just find their way to fetch a brutal first-round matchup. I'm going to go with the Avs in 6 games. Florida versus Toronto. Toronto, similar to LA, can't get a good draw in the first round. I'm going to go with the Florida Panthers in 6 games there. And then Edmonton versus Tampa Bay, which would be really, really fun. So much offensive talent in a series like that. Give me the Oilers, though. McDavid and Draisaitl just too much to overcome. Oilers, once again. I'm going to say that goes to 7.
So no upsets there on Pac's side in the next 4 matchups. Does Jesse have a few upsets up his sleeve?
This is why this format would be so cool. Oilers, Lightning in the first round? Let me hear you. All right. Vegas Wild. I don't really think this series would be close. I think Vegas would smoke them. I think Minnesota would maybe get 1 game. I take Vegas in 5. Also, Kaprizov needs to get healthy. Like, that's obviously the most important thing for that team. Avs Kings. I'm taking, no disrespect to the Kings. I just think the Avs are humming right now. They're an absolute juggernaut offensively. I'm going to take them in 5. Panthers Leafs. I think this would actually be a really, really good series, one that we've seen before, but I'm going to go with the Panthers in 7. And then Oilers Lightning. The Lightning have been a great team lately. Vasilevsky is so damn back. I'm taking the Lightning in 7.
Wow. First round
Yeah.
exit for the
Yeah.
Oil.
Yeah, that would be such a good series.
Incredible. I think it could be a potential Cup final preview if things go right this year, because both teams obviously have those aspirations and loaded up at the deadline to, especially in Tampa's case, to make some moves and really push the chips in for this one. So to recap, I think only one upset from each of you in the first round of matchups, with Jesse going Lightning over Oilers as the lower seed, and then Puck going with the Sens over the Stars as the way lower seed. So we've got our final 8 teams. I don't think anything else sticks out about the bracket in those sense. I mean, the parity in the NHL is obviously the biggest thing that sticks out, where no series really felt like it was probably going 5 games other than Carolina, New Jersey that you mentioned, and maybe Vegas, Minnesota, just because of how undermanned New Jersey is right now, and even Minnesota, quite frankly, for that matter. Without Kaprizov, that's a tough matchup. Let's move on to the final 8 now. We've got 4 more matchups to go before we get down to 4 teams remaining.
So the way we position this, just because there's no side to the bracket, essentially there would have to be a reseed after every single round. So given that I have Washington moving on and I have Ottawa with an upset, the highest seed will always play the lowest seed. So Washington versus Ottawa, 1 versus 14 in my scenario. I have the Washington Capitals moving on once again in 6 games. Winnipeg versus Edmonton would be a fun series. 2 Canadian teams. We've seen them meet in the playoffs before. I'm sorry to tell you that this time I got the Edmonton Oilers moving on. Carolina, Florida. Again, 2 East teams. I'm going to go with Florida just continuing to be dominant in the playoffs. And I'm going to say they take down Carolina in 6 games. And then Vegas, Colorado.
Woo!
Crazy series.
Oh,
This is one that I had a really, really tough time on. But lately, when I've been watching the Colorado Avalanche, I'm just finding it hard to see a team stop this team over 7-game series. So I have the Colorado Avalanche winning in 6.
All great picks, especially that last one. Love that a lot. And it's funny, I mean, even in the same format, we didn't really get any East-West crossover matchups in these final 4 matchups before the actual final 4. Jesse, you're up with your picks here.
I got a couple. So my first Capitals Lightning. I'm going Lightning in 7. I like the experience for the Lightning there, and I just think they're humming right now. Both teams, great goaltending though. Jets, Panthers. I'm going to say the Panthers are tired at this point, and their run has come to an end. Paul Maurice gets his wish and loses to the Winnipeg Jets.
That's his wish, eh?
Because he wants Winnipeg to go all the way.
Yeah.
Maybe
he
the
said it last year.
Craziest thing someone ever said after accomplishing the ultimate feat in a professional sport. Being like, you know what? I hope this team wins.
Yeah.
Man, and Winnipeg shows they're not messing around this year, and they beat them in 6 games. And they make a statement to the league, we're not messing around.
You can tell this is all hypothetical. Now when this really
This is all hypothetical.
we can tell, don't worry.
I'm sorry, is yours not hypothetical?
Well, I don't have the Jets beating the Panthers in a series, so it's a little bit more realistic.
Stars versus Avs. I think the Avs are too much for the Stars. And we saw it the other day. I think the Stars are a good team, but I think the Avalanche are a great team right now, and they're firing on all cylinders. I'm going Avs in 6. And then Hurricanes, Vegas. I think that would actually low-key be a pretty fun series, given how good Carolina's been lately, but I'm going Vegas in 6. Those damn Golden Knights, I can't stand them, but I'm going with them in 6.
So what becomes your final 4 now? What are the 2 matchups?
So my final 4 is now Jets, Lightning, and Vegas, Colorado. And that's a 2, 9, 5, and 6 seed.
Okay.
And what do you got as your final 4?
I got Washington versus Edmonton, 1 versus 8, and then Colorado, Florida, 6 versus 7.
So we're seeing the East-West crossover here, which I think, as far as travel goes, if we were to actually do this in real life,
That's the issue.
wouldn't happen until the Cup final. There's a reason.
Well, even
we have
last
the
year's Cup
conferences.
final was just the travel was such a big.
That was the
talking point.
entire talking
Yeah.
point beforehand. I mean, a lot of media members were making the comments about it. I'm sure the players really don't care that much. You got to go play wherever you got to go play.
Flying on a private jet.
Yeah, it's
I'm
not
sure-
too bad.
I'm
They're
sure
playing
they'll be
cards.
okay.
They're playing Nintendo Switch. They're having fun. Don't
Probably
worry
happened
about
again
it.
this year, if we're being honest.
I'm sure. Final fours for both of you. Who's going to the Stanley Cup final in our first ever March Madness bracket?
Alrighty. Like I said, Washington versus Edmonton. I think Washington has been discredited with how good of a season they're having. But that being said, I have a very, very hard time picking against Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl in the playoffs. So I'm going to push them towards the March Madness NHL final. And then Colorado, Florida.
That's a hell of a series.
I'm going to go Colorado. Colorado in 7. A lot of it is because I don't want to have Edmonton, Florida, and it's just like a repeat of last year.
fair.
I just think there's something about this Colorado team where they're hungry, they're rejuvenated, they've added so many weapons to their already menacing attack, and I also think Gabriel Landeskog is going to come back and play in the playoffs.
I think you might too.
Man, you know what? I think some things need to start going a little right for Florida in the coming months. Like there are question marks about this team. They're going to be missing Ekblad for the first 2 games of their series. They need Kachuk to get healthy, which I'm sure he will in the whole LTIR thing. Jones has been like good, like not. I don't think he's been like fantastic. Like he hasn't been threading the needle really for Florida. Like I don't know. Florida seems a little more beatable to me this year. But anyways,
Are they beatable in your bracket?
they were beaten in the last round by
were.
your
Right.
Winnipeg Jets.
There you go. They're beatable.
Yeah. So you know what? I'm going with my heart here because I think they're determined. I'm gonna go Jets over the Lightning in 7 games. Let's go.
Wow.
Winnipeg Jets making the Stanley Cup final. Here we go.
I mean, they are the best team in the West, in fairness. And then Vegas, Colorado. I'm going Avs in 7.
Oh, and imagine an Avs-Jets
Avs
final.
Jets Stanley
and
Cup
I had to sit
final.
here between you two
Oh,
guys.
Oh, I don't
Get
think we'd
ugly.
survive.
I would not.
I
not
don't
agree to
think
that.
we'd survive.
There's
You'd
no
have
way.
to stick a muzzle on me.
There's no way I would agree to doing that.
Jets Stanley Cup final, Habs Stanley Cup final, Avs Stanley Cup final, Leafs Stanley Cup final. I think whatever fan base we want to satisfy here between us 3 and Sam, that would be just an electric room to be in. Who's going to get it done, though? That's the main question.
I have been on record of saying that every single year that Connor McDavid is in the NHL, I will just pick the Oilers to win the cup until he does. But I'm going to go against my philosophy here, and I'm going to say that the Colorado Avalanche
Trying
are
to
your
reverse jinx it?
2025 March Madness NHL weird 1-16 hypothetical. Jesse has the Jets in his final somehow bracket winners.
Wow.
And they defeat the Edmonton Oilers.
This means a lot, you know.
in 7 games.
I think this is going to really propel Colorado to victory in real life.
Man.
So I appreciate it.
I just want to see Edmonton, Colorado in the playoffs once again somehow. I know it won't be the Stanley Cup final, but if that can be our Western Conference final, just because last time...
Might get it in the first round this year, depending on how the standings
Yeah.
shake up right now, because Edmonton is only a couple points back of Vegas, and the Wild are only a couple points back of the Avs for that first wildcard spot.
And there's
So
still a lot of time
That
left.
would be
still a lot of
nuts.
time left, and Vegas is on a bit of a losing streak here where the Oilers have won 3 in a row, so it's possible.
I hope it's not in the first round, though.
Oh, if it was in the first round, it's a bloodbath. But I mean, and we'll talk about this after Jesse gives his winner of playoff formats and things of that nature. But that's kind of what we're gearing up towards.
Well, in my notes, I have written Jets in 7 LFG.
The least surprising way for a March
Damn.
Madness bracket of
Did
16
Jesse
teams
trick
to
us
end.
into making March
No.
Madness brackets so he can spread Winnipeg Jets Stanley Cup?
Well, I
I
mean,
will
when we
say-
do our official playoff picks in 3 weeks' time, this is just we can just play this on
Exactly.
repeat because this is what it's gonna be.
I will say, because people get so mad at me for being a Jets homer, I did make another version of the bracket where the Jets did not win because I wanted, and we'll put it up. You don't have to go over everything. We will put it up on the screen to just show what my other bracket would have looked like.
It's going to be two full brackets.
And to let everyone know, I had the Panthers winning in 6 in their second round series. So then this would have changed my matchups to Vegas versus Tampa and Colorado versus Florida. I had the Lightning winning in 7 against Vegas. I had the Avs winning in 6 against the Panthers.
Rematch.
And then I have the Avs winning against the Lightning, which I think would be an unbelievable Stanley Cup final in 6 games. And I'm really thinking that the Avalanche, if they play the Jets, like, they're really the team for me in the West. And I'm like, they scare me. And we saw it last year in the first round of the playoffs. And the same thing is happening with Colorado again. They're just humming right now. They're an absolute offensive powerhouse. And they worry me. So, you happy, people?
Well, it worries me that there are March Madness winners because this is not going to come
It's
true.
like the NBA in-season tournament. Does it really matter?
Does it really matter? We'll find out, I guess, in a few weeks when the playoffs actually start. It's crazy that the playoffs are literally right around the corner, and all of this is going to be
3 weeks
set in stone. Yeah, 13 games left for some teams at this point as we record this podcast. There you have it, the Colorado Avalanche, the winners of the first annual BarDown Podcast March Madness 1-16 bracket. The more important thing, though, is when we're talking about playoff format, we wanted to bring this up because Gary Bettman was asked about it, and he said emphatically, no, they're not going to change it. He likes the format the way it is. Hockey fans don't really agree on anything, but I think anytime you ask hockey fans about the playoff format, they are always in favor of changing it back to the 1-8 in each conference. The matchups seem like they'll be fresher. It seems like there's like a first round loss seems so harsh. Like the Leafs going out in the first round every year is so different when you're playing teams like Boston and Tampa who are consistently going to the Cup, for example. So I ask you guys, what do you want to see as far as the playoff format goes? Do you actually want to see something like 1-16, or are you in favor of just abolishing what it is right now? Because I think that's the way most people feel.
I think something about the current playoff format that people don't give enough credit to it is that it puts so much emphasis on winning your division. And I feel like that's something that the NFL gets really right. And it creates a lot of these in-season rivalries. It creates a lot of meaning during the regular season. Like last week when the Leafs played Florida on a Thursday night, that felt like a big game. And Florida won, and that sent a message. And it, put the Leafs in a tougher position to get a good first-round matchup. The one thing that frustrates with me is oftentimes you see the same matchups year over year. And like this season, it feels like Carolina, New Jersey has just been locked in for so long now. And
Yawn fest.
yeah, and like, is that something I really want to see? Of course, now that Jack Hughes is injured and Dougie Hamilton, like that makes things a little bit different. But even before that, the fact that I just knew that was coming for so long, it's like, I feel like we can do something a little bit better here. But I do think that there should be an importance on being able to win the Atlantic or win the Metro, and that really mattering and that giving you a favorable first-round matchup. I also don't like the fact that like it's probably going to be Toronto-Tampa in the first round, and the winner of that will just go play Florida, regardless of what happens everywhere else. So that's where I kind of see a problem with it. It's like you're not really going to play anyone else in a different division until a conference final. Whereas when you're 1-8, the possibilities are endless. Things can change on the final day of the season with an overtime loss or an overtime win or whatever. So I feel like it can be improved. There's pros and cons with every single method. I didn't really like when they had the 1-8 and they had 3 divisions. The fact that 1, 2, and 3 were the division leaders, regardless of record. Yeah. That felt a little bit like, you see that in the NFL when there's like a 4 seed. That's not as good as a wild card team. It just, that didn't feel right. I don't know. I don't think they're going to please anyone with what they decide.
I get the whole thing with the importance of winning your division, but it's like, man, getting that home advantage in the first round is like such an advantage in general. Like, I just think that's like enough of a thing to be like, okay, like you finished well during the season. Here's your reward. You get a first round advantage. That's big. It's like, okay, I get that you can like avoid certain matchups, but we're seeing the same thing every year. It's getting old, and like, come on, like let's just go back to our roots here. That's my opinion. Or do we just go 1-16?
No, 1-16 is fun.
It's fun. It's
for an exercise like we just did, but the whole, like, the conferences should matter. You're not really playing teams. You play them twice a year in the West. It's not something that I think would be smart.
I think the losing teams are like the teams, like let's say Ottawa this year, for example, where they are 6 points as it stands now back of Tampa for third in the division. So they really have no shot of moving anywhere. You're just going to be the first wildcard team regardless, where they're only 3 points back of the Devils, who are in sixth if we're going 1-8, with 2 games in hand on them. So they could improve their stock so much more in that 1-8 system, where this system, it just feels like the finality of the season ends a month before the season. Because you know most likely who the 2 and 3 teams are going to be in the divisions, and they're going to play each other, and that's that. And the 1 seed, unless there's a kind of tight race for the division leaders, you know who that's going to be. So the matchups always seem set so far in advance. Like, for example, in the West right now, only from the 6 spot or the 3 spot to the 7 spot, only 5 points separate all those teams. Like, imagine having that playoff race go down to the wire in the last 3 weeks of the season. I think that's how you build excitement for the sport. And I just feel like it's so anticlimactic coming down the pipe here, where it's supposed to be, I guess, the most exciting time for hockey, where it's like, oh, who's going to play who? Like, these games should matter more. And I just feel like the last month of the season doesn't matter as much as it should.
Completely.
Gary Bettman doesn't value that, though. And
like, all we're really looking to right now is the wild card race of who's going to get in. The teams that are already in, there's not a whole lot of intrigue on what they're doing from night to night, because we know it can't swing.
And there's only 2 possibilities. Like, for Colorado, for example, it's either they're going to play Dallas or they're going to play the winner of the Pacific Division, and that's it. Those are your only possibilities.
Which
for a
are
first
2,
round
like,
matchup.
are you kidding me? We talk about the Leafs. Like, no one loves poking more fun at the Leafs than I do, but I'd be curious to see. Off the top of my head, I honestly think it maybe happened once in their, what has it been, 7 or 8 years straight making the playoffs now in the East, where they've actually played a seed that in a 1-8 format they should have.
Yeah.
Whereas it feels like if they're second in the East, they're playing the third place team in the East every single year. And they've never gotten an actual, like, oh, you were the second or third best team in the East. You're going to play the 6th best team. You're going to play the 7th best team in the conference. It never seems to happen with how strong the Atlantic has been in recent years. And teams seem to pay the price year after year because of this format. And I just feel like it probably could use some sort of refresher.
A facelift for sure. I would love to see it. I think hockey fans are all kind of in general agreement with that. It sucks to hear that Gary Bettman is so opposed to it at this point, but he makes the decisions ultimately, which in this case I think is a bad one.
Yeah.
Let's move on to Don't Think, Just Tweet. And we're going to talk about some of the wild card stuff going on because we had to mention it. The wild card races, especially in the East, are very tight right now, even in the West, actually, with how good St. Louis is playing, like you mentioned.
The resurgence of St. Louis.
I know.
We went into
Jordan
Four Nations
Binnington
being like, oh, the West is just very boring in terms of the playoff race. It was kind of this, like, mediocre Vancouver team who was playing below their level, and then Calgary who's just, like, punching above their weight clearly. And now there's, like, other teams that have really gotten the ball rolling here. So it's been cool.
Even Utah is still technically alive. Like, only Utah. 4 points back.
They're getting healthier.
Vancouver. They're getting healthier. We're not going to talk about Utah, though. The first Don't Think, Just Tweet. This one will go for you, Puck. After seeing Dylan Cozens off to an incredible start with the Senators, would you already have seller's remorse if you were the Buffalo Sabres? And just to pull up some Dylan Cozens stats for anyone that doesn't know, I think he's got 5 points in 6 games, and since joining the Sens, Mike Kelly had a great tweet from NHL Network. Since joining the Sens, first in scoring chances, first in slot shots on net, first in hits, first in faceoff wins, second in controlled zone entries. This was as of like March 18th, so a couple days prior to when we're recording this podcast, but that's the kind of impact he's had.
Oh, man, I kind of wish Z was here for this one. Not because I actually would like to hear his take on it, not to, like, rub it in his face.
For sure.
But I just think when a pattern keeps happening year after year after year with Buffalo, they're like the Kyle Pitts of NHL teams where
That's
it's like
tough, man.
It just, no matter what, it seems like when a player leaves, he just has this boost in his game. And I don't know if it's the environment that the player's placed in Buffalo or if it's just
dark hole,
sometimes players need a fresh start. And I will say all this with, like, Josh Norris. I know he's already missed some time with an injury, which sucks. Yeah. But, like, he's looked solid with the Sabres. He's got a goal and an assist in 3 games. He'll be a very good player for them. He's a great second line center to have, and I think the return that they got on
If
Cozens
he can stay healthy,
was great.
which is a big if.
It's just like it sucks to watch the Sabres continuing to trade someone and then they go elsewhere and they just live up to their potential, if not play better than that. So I wouldn't necessarily say seller's remorse because I don't think you would have gotten this out of Cozens in Buffalo, and I think you did well on your return. So Sabres fans, I think you should feel good about this trade. It's just like you got to look at your organization and look in the mirror and be like, why does this keep happening to us? How can we build a team? How can we create an environment where when we get a good young player in there, they don't need to leave in order to play great hockey, and they can be with us and make the playoffs and score big goals and make an impact, because Dylan Cozens has been awesome. Even the other night against Montreal, like, he was the player I noticed the most on the Senators.
I actually made a video about this. Ryan O'Reilly wins a Stanley Cup next season after he leaves Buffalo. Jack Eichel wins one 2 seasons after he leaves Buffalo. Sam Reinhart wins one 3 seasons after he leaves Buffalo. Ottawa Senators Stanley Cup coming pretty soon.
In 4 years?
In 4 years.
Yeah,
in
it's
the
like
next
1, 2,
4
3,
years.
4.
In the next 4 years, for sure.
Bowen Byram
And
wins
the only-
5 years from now.
The only thing I'd say
Again?
The only thing I'd say is, like, Josh Norris is a good player, obviously. I think Cozens, you kind of know what you have in him. He's shown what you have in him. Man, like, there's risk taking on a guy like Josh Norris.
Well, there was
Like,
risk.
he's a good player.
There was risk. We talked about this on the trade deadline. I think there was risk taken on a guy like Dylan Cozens as well, because he has not lived up to the building.
Not health wise as much.
Yeah, it's not
Josh-
health-wise.
no,
but he was doing nothing in
Man,
Buffalo. this
Josh
year.
Norris is a great player, but, like, there are health issues with him.
For sure.
He's always injured. And, like, when you're giving away, like, one of your young best players for someone who, like, has had a really difficult time staying in the lineup, I don't know, man. There's a lot of risk with that.
Surprised you're not giving Josh Norris more love, considering you're head to toe in the maize and blue.
Did he go to Michigan?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
We talked about the Ottawa Senators. This next Don't Think Just Tweet is for you, Jesse. Which team currently battling for a wild card spot are you most confident could go on a deep playoff run? And I think the way we describe deep is probably like either taking a team to the brink in the second round, but like you got to win one round at least and maybe make it to the conference finals. So out of the wild card teams, where right now currently as it stands, you've got Montreal and Ottawa, which is incredible. And then you've got Vancouver and Minnesota on the west side. Colorado could fall back into the wild card, as well as no, Edmonton won't. Edmonton won't fall back in because there's no other good Pacific team. So
Out of those 4 teams, I'm going with Ottawa. I mean, I just think that if Omar can really, like, be elite, like, he can win a series on his own. Like, he's that good. He's proven he's an amazing goalie. Man, a guy like Brady Tkachuk, dog. Like, like, you have that guy leading your team, scared of absolutely no one. He'll be pushing guys around. People will be scared to go into the corners with that guy. Like, they also have, again, they have guys like Cozens. They have guys like Claude Giroux, who's been there before as well. Still a really good player. They've got a good defenseman. They've got Sanderson. They've got Shabbat. Like, I don't know. I feel like Ottawa is a really well-balanced, deep team. They've got Stützle, obviously, who I didn't even mention, who's been red hot. I think Ottawa, like, I've been saying this actually for a while. Like, I think we talked about it at the office. Like, I think Ottawa they're poised to go on a nice little run here. Like, if I was the Leafs, I would not feel good about having to play Ottawa in the first round if they win the division. And could you imagine Florida, Ottawa? The Tkachuk brothers
Bowl.
against each other.
That would be crazy.
7
Pure
games.
Cinema. Pure cinema.
7 games of just violence.
And call me nuts. Like, maybe I'm just completely wrong for saying this. Like, I see Ottawa giving Florida a good run in that series. I think Ottawa's like a really young, energized team. They're fresh. Florida, I don't know. I'm not completely sold on Florida this year. Not yet.
It's hard to go. I mean, it's
hard to
they
go
won
back to
last year,
back.
but they've been 2 years in a row. Like, it's so
Hard to
hard.
get it done 3
Yeah,
times.
It's just so
Tampa did
grueling.
it. They went to 3 straight cups.
Yeah.
They went to 3 straight cups, and they didn't even
COVID year.
Well,
And Vasilevsky's equipment's too big. Cheating.
Another thing too, we spoke about Edmonton. I know you had them going to the Cup final.
That's just out of principle.
They're
to
a
do
team
that.
to me, like, they've just been a little streaky.
Doesn't matter.
Well, it does matter. Are they going to be?
So how many games are left? 12.
And I actually think, call me nuts, for whatever reason, maybe I just keep thinking back to the COVID year. I feel like the Jets actually match up pretty well against Edmonton. Like, we are a really good defensive team. We can shut players down. And I think McDavid and Draisaitl, we would give them a tough time in the playoffs. I do.
I will pick the Oilers to at least be in the Stanley Cup. I feel until I will stand with that take.
That's fair.
Until McDavid wins one.
I get
Little
it.
preview of our upcoming Stanley Cup playoff preview. When I'm talking about the Oilers, I will probably have them in the Cup final.
We will have a Stanley Cup preview, obviously playoff preview. When all the matchups are set, we're going to pick all of our matchups, as we always do. And it's always really exciting to do that. You mentioned the Oilers, and that brings us to our goal of the week. We haven't done this for a while.
Yeah,
we have not done this for a while.
I was trying to remember who the current leader is.
I don't know who the current leader is, so someone's going to have to remind us who the current leader is.
It actually might already be McDavid.
It might be. No, it's not
Bouchard
Bouchard.
was dethroned.
Bouchard was dethroned.
You know who it was? It was Marie-Philippe Poulin.
No, but someone dethroned Marie as well. It's really bad. The goal. You know what? This one's going to be tough to top because we are going to Edmonton for this one, and we are going to Connor McDavid. And this is why a lot of people think that the Oilers can win a cup, is because of this guy and what he does with the puck. He has scored some ridiculous goals recently. Maybe not more ridiculous than this. I feel horrible for Ilya Lyubushkin there.
That's like a move
What else are
you
you supposed
see
to
when
do?
you watch like U7 hockey. Like there's one player on the ice
Just
who's
faster
clearly
than
better than everyone,
Better
and
than
he doesn't
everybody.
even do a move. He just puts it through the guy's legs and skates around him. Like this should not happen at the NHL level, and I don't mean that as like a knock on Lyubushkin.
No,
because
what?
I don't think he could have played this any better.
What is
Look
he
at this.
supposed
Just
to
look
do?
how fast he is.
And he's looking at McDavid the entire time, which is what you're taught as a defenseman. You look at the body, you play the body, you don't look at the puck. His head is up the whole time. It does not matter. It does not
and he makes
matter.
the finish look so easy. Like
So casual. That is the goal of the week. I think that's the new champion for
I
all
think Dylan
intents and
DeMello's
purposes.
shutting that guy down one-on-one. Come on.
Oh, stop talking smack. With
Nobody
No.
matches up well against Connor McDavid. Nobody.
No, okay, but I actually asked the people on X this as well. At this moment in time, going into the playoffs, who would you rather have leading your team? McDavid or McKinnon?
McKinnon's been on like another level this year, which is crazy.
Dude, the past 2 years,
Yeah.
he's been on another level.
He's been great. I think McDavid is the best player in the world.
For sure,
So, like
yeah.
I love Nathan McKinnon. Obviously, like he's my favorite
Yeah.
player.
If
Him and
McKinnon
Taylor.
was in like any other era, I feel
the
like
best player in the world.
It's,
Yeah.
worth,
Like,
it's worth thinking about, though. You know, like
for sure.
McKinnon's also got that chip.
yeah.
It's a good question.
It is a good question.
And
It
it's
is.
a lot closer than people think.
Exactly.
probably, which is the interesting part of the debate for sure.
The Oilers though.
McKinnon's leading the league in points right now, isn't
Playoff,
He
yeah.
is.
Yeah.
he? Like, if not Hellebuck, I think he's going to win his second straight Hart Trophy.
the Oilers have Jeff
Leon,
Skinner
too.
though, and he's
Leon's
going to make
great.
his playoff
What?
debut.
Skinner.
The Oilers with you don't want to see playoff Jeff Skinner
I'm pretty excited
because
to
we've
see
been waiting a
playoff-
long time to see playoff.
I'm
Jeff
pretty
Skinner.
excited to see playoff Jeff Skinner. I am. It's going to be worth the wait.
And what Stuart Skinner are we going to see, more importantly?
Or Picard.
A lot of questions to answer as the last month of the season kind of comes down to it. And that leads us to our final feature. And we got to go back to Crown Royal as our sponsor. That deserves a crown. This one is going to our own Jesse Pollock. Because
Surprise!
Who would've thought?
he is going
Surprise!
to the Jets and Caps game on March 25th. And he's talked about it on this podcast a number of times. But it's a very cool thing that's happening where the Crown Royal rig will be featured by Crown Royal at the game. There's going to be a pregame tailgate watch party for Jets Caps. Could be a President's Trophy game right there where whoever wins it wins the President's Trophy, which is kind of cool.
I don't know if I want to win that game, for the record.
I know.
I don't want the
Jesse,
President's Trophy.
The President's Trophy curse. Tell us a little more about this, though, because this sounds like a blast.
Yeah, so it's interesting, actually. I was originally, I bought a ticket to fly down to the game, and I'm going with 3 of my buddies. And we were originally just going to do it not work-related.
Yeah.
Because I love Ovechkin. I've always been an Ovechkin guy. My favorite player as a kid. And I was thinking that he might break the record this game. But then, you know, Crown informed us that like the rig is going to be outside, or it's going to be at True North Square. And they just asked if we want to come check it out. And I'm like, absolutely. So cool. Crown Royal is such a big part of what Manitoba is. It's Manitoba made. And on top of just hanging out and having a good time, you can actually pack hampers for Winnipeg Harvest, which is just an amazing thing that Crown Royal is doing as well. So really, my crown's off to you, Crown Royal.
There we go.
They're a great partner. They've been awesome to us. It's so cool that we get to do this. And I'm really excited to check this out. I think I'm going to kind of showcase it similar to how we've done arena tours, just show what it is. And also be prepared to see a pretty cool jersey that I'll be wearing that I've been told about. Yeah.
We'll tease it
Ovi
there.
jersey.
Not an
Switching
Ovi.
teams.
No.
You're no longer a Jets fan.
No.
I have a question for you, actually. I know it's like now it's the game's a week away, whatever. It's looking unlikely that Ovi will break the record that game unless he gets like 2 hat tricks over the next couple.
Gretzky will be in the building if he's
Yes,
5 goals.
that's another cool thing that you were saying.
That's what I've been told.
If Ovi was 1 goal away from breaking the record, would you cheer against the Jets?
I would
the
absolutely.
game goes to overtime?
Yeah, you're cheering.
Yes,
Cheering
bro.
for them
have
to lose the
to.
game.
Yes, bro. Like, sorry, like to see it, to witness the greatest sports accomplishment in our lifetime, in my opinion. Like, that's the greatest sports accomplishment I've ever seen in my life. And you know what? Ovechkin has torched the Jets in the past before, so
This sounds like it's going to be awesome, and shout out to Crown Royal for obviously being such a great partner and sponsor.
the best.
They deserve a crown. You deserve a crown. And thanks everyone for watching. Enjoy the March Madness, and we will be back with our
Don't
playoff
play the song
predictions
again.
in
Don't do
in
it.
a few weeks. The phone fell, so we
I was getting it.
we're
Cut the
ending
show.
it right here.
Cut the show.
Da 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 da.